Welcome back to the Gold News Channel. My name is Kerry Stevenson, and I'm delighted to speak with an old mate of mine who I haven't seen for a while because he left Australia and moved to Vancouver about 5 years ago, and we kind of lost touch. And through luck, good fortune or whatever, I contacted Craig because he has been a busy man. He is the chairman and co-founder of Inventa Capital. Inventa Capital started its life in 2017, but Craig's also been very busy with a lot of other plays that he's doing. Now, I'm going to get him to give us a brief overview of what he's been up to since he left Australia and moved to Vancouver, perhaps why he moved to Vancouver. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what he sees in this current bull run and what we all should be looking for, what the risks and the opportunities are. Craig Parry, welcome to the Gold News Channel. Great to see you again, mate.
Yeah, g'day, Kerry. Really good to see you again. It's been a few years.
It has, and nice to see you haven't lost your Aussie accent, even though you're up there in Canada.
No, we're fiercely maintaining our Aussie identity here.
Good to hear.
Despite becoming hockey parents and doing a heck of a lot of Canadian activities.
No, hockey's not such a bad thing. Now, Craig, to those of our listeners that don't know much about what you've been doing, because you are busy, can you give me a brief overview of, first of all, who are Inventa Capital and some of the projects that you're currently involved with?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, I left, I was part of the Tigers Realm group there with Owen and Tony. I was a co-founder there with the guys, and David Forsyth, of course, back in 2008-9 when we left Oxiana. And then, a lot of your viewers and listeners will be familiar with the Tigers Realm companies, including Inventa Capital, which I was a part of, and I still am a partner of. But one of the companies we started out of the stable there was Next Gen Energy, and we discovered the world-class, or tier one indeed, uranium project, the Arrow uranium project in the Athabasca Basin. I was leaving Tigers Realm Coal in 2015 to focus on other things, and they kicked me out of Australia. I thought I'd better come over here to Canada, and of course, Canada is such a wonderful capital market, particularly during a bullish market. We're having great success there, fortunately, with Next Gen, and we decided to spin some assets out of Next Gen. And we moved to sunny old Vancouver. It's a typical fall day here, nice and wet and looking a bit miserable out there. But we moved to Vancouver back in 2015 and spun our Eastern Athabasca assets out into ISO Energy. We made another world-class uranium discovery there in the Hurricane deposit, which the team is currently drilling out. And in the meantime, I sort of stretched the entrepreneurial muscle a little bit and I think we've started 22 companies now.
Goodness me.
We've got 10 listed companies. Some of the bigger and better ones in the stable, Vizsla Silver, which just hit a market cap of a bit over $500 million the other day. We've got various different companies there as well. Outback Goldfields, Goldball Resources, and a few others. So I'm the chairman and co-founder of all of those companies. We've also got, Vizsla Copper, which was spun out of Vizsla Silver. We're looking at making some acquisitions in the copper space soon. So we're very, very bullish on copper. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a $50 copper price in the next 10 years.
Wow.
You heard that here first.
Ladies and gentlemen, my career's back.
You might be able to tell that I worked with Owen Hegarty for 10 years. And then, so we have our Surge Copper, and I'm also the chairman of Skeena Resources, where we're fast advancing our Eskay Creek project back into development and production. And that's now a $1 billion market cap company there at Skeena as well.
Well, you've been very busy. We're not going to be able to cover all of it. This is the Gold News Channel, but I do like uranium. And just if we can just briefly, before we go into the sort of the gold and silver area, what's your view on uranium? And the Athabasca Basin is a very good place to look for uranium, very high grade, isn't it?
Very high grade, that's certainly the best place in the world to look. So we got that right. And of course, that a lot of you people watching this will have heard me talk about how we rank and prioritize projects, size of the prize, cost of the test, chance of success. the Athabasca Basin ticks all of those boxes so very, very well. And you know, applying those approaches in the right part of the world can have very good results. And so we, of course, discovered the Tier 1 Arrow deposit. And then a couple of years ago, discovered the Hurricane deposit. Hurricane, you know, the best drill result we drilled there was about 8 meters at nearly 50% U308. So extraordinarily high grades. And that company's gone from I think we started with about a 20 million market cap. It's a $600 or $700 million company today. Over the past 3 years, we grew that. So you can have great success, but we're bullish on uranium. You know, the world, I think you've seen the COP conference in Glasgow this past week. We saw the announcement that China's going to build at least another 135 new reactors over the next little while.
And where is that supply going to come from?
Where's that supply going to come from? And of course, there's been a dearth of exploration. We don't see enough out there to keep up. And of course, there's some immediate drivers. You've seen the Sprott Uranium Trust created out of Denison's old UPC. They're making acquisitions all the time. What we're hearing from the Sprott Uranium Trust guys is that they fully expect that the uranium price will be over $100 a pound sometime early next year, based on their buying alone. So, you know, we're on the verge at the earliest of stages of a serious bull market. Yeah. And of course, that last bull market from 2004 to 2007 made some great fortunes for a handful of investors in the uranium space. We can see that happening again. But we're bullish like that on all metals because we're about to go through something that the world's really never seen, a fundamental change in the demand for metals away from oil and gas as we move into the electrification of the planet. Hang
on a second, I'm going to introduce you there, Craig, interrupt you there, Craig. You say away from oil and gas, but we can't, you know, there's been, I guess, a dearth of exploration in that sector as well. And we can't just go, right, that's the end of oil and gas. I see opportunities in the oil and gas sector as well, not just in the metal sector.
No worries about that. Yeah, look, you're right. There hasn't been. And of course, all of these wells that have been producing for the past 50 years, everything's starting to look fairly bleak in terms of production profiles, discoveries. Yeah. So I'm bullish on all things. But I think, you know, if you look at Peter Brown here has become a really good mate of mine, and he points out that, you know, where was the oil price in 1960 or 1965, for example? It was about 30 cents a barrel. The oil price between then and 1990 went from, to today, had peaks upwards of $90 a barrel. So the commodity price itself was 300 times that base price. Now, we haven't seen that in copper or any of the other metals as we go through that transformation. And of course, what we do know is that it just hasn't been enough work done on exploration, development. And when it comes to turning on a major new project, you look at our friends at Ausenco Engineering, Simon Smirlex, the COO there, one of my very best mates. They built the last great copper mine, Mina Justa, which Owen and I actually owned in our CST company a while back. We sold it. That just got built for $2.4 billion. It's going to do 103,000 tonnes of copper a year. It took 20 years to get to that point. There aren't many of those out there. And Trafigura tell us we need somewhere between 50 and 70 new Mina Justas in the next 7 years.
Goodness me.
You know, we don't have enough metal in the ground. We don't have enough people to build these things, and we don't have enough capital to build them. You know, that would equate to another $140 billion of investment. So, you know, I think we're about to go through what Robert Friedland is now calling the revenge of the miners, and we'll see extraordinarily high spikes in commodity prices, but particularly those ones with a battery metal theme. Now, gold doesn't sit at the heart of that, of course, but we're bullish on gold because of global market and fiscal dynamics. But you know, silver does sit at the heart of that theme, so we think that we're going to see very high silver prices as well.
Yeah, the silver story is quite interesting, isn't it? Because poor old silver, it's been the poor cousin of gold. In fact, both gold and silver have been somewhat ignored and unloved for quite some time. I'm very much at the forefront of that. As you know, we run the Australian Gold Conference and we do stuff online, both in gold and silver. But I want to talk about silver first, and then we'll go on to gold. You say that silver will be part of this sort of this battery revolution, this green revolution. Tell me why you think that, and then let's go into a little bit about Vizsla and what you're doing there in Mexico.
Well, look, you know, of course, silver has the great advantage that it ticks all of the has all of those characteristics of gold. You know, it's a commodity, a currency, a hedge against all things as well. So it ticks all of those boxes, but it has the great advantage that it's a serious commodity as well and expanding. And of course, you know, demand for silver in all of the sort of new renewable projects is important, particularly as a flux and a solder material goes into solder, of course, but also for solar panels. So we see that industrial demand for silver growing, again, against the backdrop of no serious silver discoveries over the past past 20 or 30 years, not too many of them anyway. We do have one serious new discovery at our Panuco project in Vizsla Silver's Panuco project. So that will be a new district that will come on stream in the next few years, but there hasn't been too much work done. So we, again, that juxtaposition of lack of exploration work, lack of development against a serious new demand, I think is going to drive serious silver price jumps.
Silver, as I said before, silver has just been sort of languishing a little bit there, Craig. Do you think that there's going to be a change in sentiment with silver because of this lack of supply in the near future? Or do you think currently it's about $24 an ounce? Do you think it will stay that way, or do you think we're going to see a little bit of an uptick? Because listen, my listeners love to know if there's going to be a bit of a spike, and and therefore, there's a couple of silver companies down here in Australia. We do have a couple of interesting projects, but Mexico is massive.
Massive. Yeah, look, Owen sort of drummed this into all of us to some extent, I suppose. You've got to be a long-term thinker, planner, and actor. Right. So we do take a long-term view of all of these things. And I think the long-term view is extraordinarily positive on silver, as for pretty much every metal. And there aren't too many metals which aren't really battery metals in a way. But silver, very, very bullish. In the, nearer term, actually, that's pretty funny. You must hear my ears burning. Owen's calling me as we speak.
Answer it and say I'm talking to Kerry. Go on, answer it. I'd love it. Hello, Owen.
Hello, Owen. I'm on an interview with Kerry Stevenson here.
Hello, Owen. We'll have to catch up soon, Owen.
your ears must have been burning.
No, I'm up in Hong Kong. I've been at the gym, I've had breakfast, I'm all dressed up, and it's only 6 o'clock in the morning.
well, good on. I'll let you go and get yourself a cappuccino.
We won't be long, Owen.
Give me a call when you're ready. No hurry. Good on you, Craig.
Good on you.
All the best. Bye.
Thanks, Owen. Bye.
We love having a little bit of an interruption. And for those of you that were going, what was that all about? That was Owen Hegarty. And in fact, Owen Hegarty was the recipient of our Hall of Fame award at the Gold Conference before COVID hit. So that was just, I had to get you to answer that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's a fantastic, true champion of our industry and a wonderful, wonderful man.
Absolute true champion of our industry. You're absolutely right. Now, Craig, slight distraction there. Thanks, Owen. We love you. He's in Hong Kong. That's interesting. Talk to me about Vizsla Resources and how you came across this project in Mexico. Why do you like Mexico? And we were meant to talk last week, but you had to whiz off down to the project. Got any news for us?
Yeah, we do. Look, I wish that I'd gone to Mexico 20 years ago. I've been in the industry for 23 years now. And the experience we've had down in Mexico has been extraordinary. Firstly, you've got extraordinary prospectivity, particularly for silver. It's the world's biggest silver producing country, of course. And it's a place where you can operate and operate safely, is what we've learned. The prospectivity is massive. I should have been there long ago, but my very first trip there was really to visit our Panuco project. We had a friend submit to us a slide deck. It sat on my desk for 2 days without me looking at it. One morning I picked this up and I rang my business partner and said, we need to be in Mexico tomorrow. So we flew down there that very next day. And we started walking around the hills of Sinaloa there at our Panuco project. and we're astonished by what we saw. An entire district that had been cobbled together over the past 20 years by various people, never had a drill hole in much of it. 450 years of silver production, by the way. Shipped a hell of a lot of silver back to Spain, so much, and Italy, so much so that the Pope actually came to the project area in the 1770s to bless it.
Oh, wow.
So, an extraordinary history there. But what we found was that, an entire district that had maybe a couple of hundred drill holes done on tiny parts of it, a heck of a lot of silver produced, silver and gold mineralization literally dripping out of the hills that had never been drilled. So we put our foot in the project. It looked like an expensive deal at the time, but we've now paid for the project. We've raised, I think, over 150 million to do that. We raised 74 million back in June this year. I've put $9 million into the company personally this year, so that shows you my commitment to it. And we're fast moving towards an initial silver resource there on one vein, two veins, our Napoleon and Tajitos veins. We've now mapped out over 85 kilometres of veins across the property, and about 10% of that has been explored so far. So I think what we have there is an entire silver district. It'll be, a huge resource base over time, but we're focused on two key areas at the moment and quickly getting those to the resource stage and on into production as quickly as we can.
Where is Vizsla listed?
It's TSXV listed.
TSXV, and what's the code?
It's VZLA.
Okay. So for those of you that are out there that want a bit of a play on silver, when do you think you might be going into production with that one?
That will be over the next couple of years. We haven't declared a maiden resource there, but that's coming in Q1 next year. We're going to list the company on the New York Stock Exchange. What I can tell you, what was really interesting is we took 30 analysts and investors, serious institutional investors, down to site last week. And the response was extraordinary. The bulk of them said that was the best site visit they've ever been on. We saw a 20% jump in the share price the next day as everyone got back on their desk and started writing stories about it. We've sort of seen major analyst upgrades come and more are coming. So we're, and I think what happened there is that people have seen some spectacular drill results come out of the project in the past 2 years. But what's very hard to get across in a news release these days, given all of the sort of regulatory issues, is the scale of something. And so when people came out to the project, the light bulb moment happened and they realised, holy dooly, this is an entire district. This is going to be a very big project. And so hence the buying there. So that was, it was sort of a little bit life affirming to take a bunch of investors out and see them buying stock as we stopped along the way at each stop.
Craig, as an Aussie, I have to ask you, do you know Mithril Resources? I think they're also exploring over there in Mexico. Are they anywhere close to you?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think that project's up in Sonora, but don't quote me on this. But I have looked at it. I actually looked at it some time ago and really like the look of the project. Yeah. Haven't kept an eye on it.
It's interesting. I think that Australians and Australian investors look at Mexico and go, oh, jurisdiction, not quite sure about Mexico. But what do you say about that as a jurisdiction for mining, for getting production?
Yeah, look, and unfortunately, we're sort of blessed with, some people around us who have had really good experience there in Mexico. Charles Funk, who worked with me at Oxiana and joined. I've been trying to get Charles to work for me for about 5 or 6 years and took him to the project, and he quit his job that day and joined us.
Wow.
And we've had that happen a couple of times. Our analyst at Canaccord, Mike Pettingill, he quit his job and came and joined us as well. So this is the first project I've had where people actually quit and come and join the company. So that's very good. What I can tell you, I was a bit trepidatious, particularly, going to Sinaloa, because you've heard all of the sort of bad stories about cartels and things like that. But what you find when you get there is that the area is very safe and you can operate very successfully. Some jurisdictions on the southern borders with Guatemala and places like that, very challenging and can be quite dangerous. But for the most part, anywhere north of Mexico City and west of Mexico City is very good very good places.
Yeah,
to
I've been to Mexico. I love it. I've been to Acapulco, love it. So don't listen to the mainstream media. Mexico is a wonderful place to be. We're running out of time. I really want to find out, can we briefly touch on Goldball Resources? Because that's now being run by someone I know, Cherie Leedon, I believe, is your CEO there.
That's right, Cherie's there. She's doing a fantastic job. We're actually just doing a financing at the moment. I think we've raised about $5 or $6 million here in the last few days. Cherie and I worked together at Rio Tinto about 18 or 19 years ago, and she's gone on to build a fabulous suite of businesses there in Nevada. She's become one of the US's most successful explorers, and she's done a great job of putting together our project base there at Goldball. It's an interesting one. It's sort of, it's I think of all of our companies in our portfolio has one of the lowest valuations and is the most value at the moment. We've got about a $18 million market cap, I should say. We've got 500,000 ounces in resources at surface in Nevada, in a place you can develop it. And that's growing. I think we've got a very clear path to 1 million plus ounces there, plus a number of other acquisitions to do. We call our flagship project, the Sandman project. We bought that off Newmont. That was the first serious sale from Newmont in the US to a junior in many, many years. And Cherie was instrumental in getting them across the line on that. The things that are important there are, demonstrating that you're going to be a good steward of your partner's project, and that, you follow ESG principles very, very seriously. And so, she managed to get that deal done against all odds. And, we'll be drilling and exploring there for some time to come. Simple story in that, at surface, you've got this relatively low-grade shallow mineralization. Yep. And as I say, I think we've got a clear path to 1 million ounces. And below that, potential in these feeder zones for very, very high-grade mineralization. There's a deposit that's about 25 kilometres to the north of us called Sleeper. That produced over 2.5 million ounces of gold, I should say, at very high grades. And we see that sort of potential below our existing resources there as well. So having had this financing out of the way this week, we'll be sending drill rigs out there in a couple of weeks again, and good news flow coming from that.
It's a busy time at Inventa Capital. We've gone from the Northern Hemisphere. I've got to touch on the Southern Hemisphere. That is Outback Goldfields, which is on the Canadian Stock Exchange. I think it's OZ. Bit of a high risk one. This is, I think it's the Victorian Goldfields, which, as we all know, Fosterville, what an opportunity that became. Oh, goodness me. I remember it back in the day when they didn't think anything was there. And now look at it, one of the highest grade gold mines in the world. Now, what are you guys doing down there, Craig Parry?
Yes, good. So good question. So actually, as I was sort of leaving Tigers Realm Coal, I got talking to a fund manager in New York from Luxor Capital, Mike Comboy, and Comboy was the 30% shareholder of Crocodile Gold. So we looked at doing a full takeover of Crocodile at that time, which would have given us the things they had in the Northern Territory and Fosterville. I was always sort of interested in Fosterville. I thought it was a tough mine. It had a good team that could get blood from stone, really, to make it work. Unfortunately, I was the underbidder on that process, and a couple of blokes by the name of Doug Johnson and Blaine, whose last name's going to escape me now, from Newmarket acquired the project. That's right. And then about 4 weeks later, put in that spectacular drill hole, discovered the Swan Zone, and then, of course, sold that to Kirkland Lake for a few $1 billion. It became the best gold mine for the last few years. So I missed out on that one. So when my friends Craig O'Connor and Rob Greenslade, who were major shareholders in Petrotherm, came to me with an idea that we could buy out Petrotherm's assets in the Victorian Goldfields, I wasn't going to miss it this time. And so we acquired those assets. We put them into a vehicle we had here and changed the name to Outback Goldfields. Chris Donaldson, an old friend of mine and very good operator, came on board as the CEO. We quickly raised $11 million last year for that. And the exciting thing to me about this is that, all of our properties have got, seriously good gold targets and potential sort of epizonal targets like Fosterville on them. But the really exciting one to my mind is our Ballarat West property. Now, within that sits right west of Ballarat. It's 4 kilometres from the main Ballarat mines. It's production from around the licence, and within 5 kilometres of the licence has been 16 million ounces. Where there's outcrop on our property, there's been over 400,000 ounces produced. And then you have some on the northern 2/3 of the property, you have fairly shallow basalt cover. And of course, no one's ever sort of been able to effectively look below that. So we'll be doing roadside RAB drilling plus geophysical work to target on that. And, the fact that 16 million ounces of gold has been produced very close to the property boundary. The only thing that I think stopped serious discoveries on this property is that shallow cover. So we'll be following that work up and, hope to be drilling there for, deep lead and epizonal mineralisation, I should say, on that property at some point later next year. And I think that remains one of the best gold exploration properties on the planet today because of those characteristics. Wow.
Okay. Well, watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. Outback Goldfields. Now, look, we're running out of time, Craig. I need to ask you this. Let's talk big picture briefly. A lot of people on this channel, they love gold, they love silver. Gold has finally popped its head above the $1,800 US. I think I checked this morning, it was about 1830. Given that we are in it's not transitory, inflation is here, it ain't going away. People may not be talking about it that much, but let me tell you, governments are not going to stop printing the funny money, as I call it. What's your view when people say, gold is yesterday's sound money?
Yeah, look, it does make me laugh. I think, you could argue that cryptocurrencies have stripped over $1 trillion out of our precious metal trade. I think that's one of the great bubbles of all time, and it might take a few years to work through that, but people will soon realise that they've been had to some extent. That may upset some people, and I'll get some hate mail there, but that's okay. We're used to that. But I think there's a few things. Of course, as you say, these economists, globally respected economists, are being found out as we speak, and have gone from the transitory idea to having to admit logically that this inflation, when you print trillions of dollars of currency, it's going to result in something. I think, what you're seeing, it looks like Biden might get his sort of $2 trillion cash handout plan approved here shortly. Again, that will get fed back into the system, and we'll see, ridiculous inflation coming in the next few years. I also think, we're seeing a few other things going on here. I've seen there's a metals analyst here that we all respect greatly who mentioned last week, sent out a sort of confidential note to some of his key people that he thinks that we're about to see a serious spike up in precious metals prices over the next month or two. This guy called the copper run, within about 6 weeks of saying the copper was going to $2 to $3.60, the copper price did exactly that. Well, he's saying that we'll see $2,000 plus gold and much higher silver very, very soon. Just on that silver trade, I've sort of got to know Eric Sprott a bit.
You went fishing with him.
Went fishing with Eric, and Eric told me, watch out for that COMEX trade, Craig. JP Morgan being slapped with a nearly $1 billion fine. There's more of that to come. It's still a heavily manipulated trade. And once that flushes out, that'll open the taps for a much higher silver price. He thinks that silver will be $100 a pound, $100 an ounce in the not too distant future. I'd be happy with 50.
I'd be happy with 50.
Yep. But so all of those things, I think, and of course, the other thing is the world's not a safer place than it was a few years ago. And you see what is happening in China and the CCP's attitude to Taiwan. That could see some global ructions at any point very, very soon. And I think you want to have gold. You want to have not only equities, but actually have physical gold with you at some point in time.
Yeah, physical gold, physical silver, but the leverage play is on the equity side as well. Absolutely. But when you're looking at equities, final word to you, Craig Parry, if people are looking to invest in gold equities, silver equities, what are the 3 most important things that they need to look for when putting their hard-earned money into different companies?
Yeah, probably, the three things are probably people, and people. Find the right people that, do the right thing. Firstly, technically, they have to be very good, of course. They have to be good stewards of money and projects, and they have to have good projects. As Tony Manini used to say to me, just back the people. They will always find a good project. So that's the important thing to me. But beyond that, they will find the right projects. There are plenty of them out there. We've got some great ones ourselves, and our team's doing a fantastic job. So you should look at Inventa Capital, our website there, inventacapital.ca, and also Google Vizsla Silver, and you'll see a very good suite of projects there.
There you go. There you heard it here from Craig Parry first. First up, that copper price going stronger, and some confidential information there, ladies and gentlemen, that the silver price and the gold price are just about getting set to go. So do your own homework, do your own research. But I really appreciate Craig Parry from Inventa Capital, chairman and co-founder. Good to see you all the way up there in Canada. Thanks for joining me on the Gold News Channel today.
Good on you, Kerry. Really good to catch up, and thanks for your time.